Ray, welcome.
Hey, Gerard, how you going, mate?
I'm okay. Right. What's the right way? What has the coaching to the umpires been this week around an adjustment to the dissent rule?
So we had coaching last night, and we looked at a couple of examples like we do with any particular rule on any given week. And there was some discussions around, what the players are doing really well, what we're no longer seeing. So, we no longer see free kick paid, 6 players running over, haranguing an umpire, all seeking a 50 words or less explanation about, what transpired, etc. So, they're to be commended, and, what was essentially, an increased awareness and probably a more literal application of an existing rule. So dissent's not new, right? That's been in the law book forever and a day. We've seen a great change to behaviour on field, and the players have driven that. And that's sincere. That's not just to put online. Like, you can genuinely see them, even in So I've been out a bit, Gerard. I've been injured, but I love the game, right? I love watching different teams, and I watched the game a couple of weeks ago on the Friday night. Now, you couldn't get probably a more heightened moment emotionally. Fought game, side comes from behind, siren sounds. Is that 50? And you could see players were wanting to engage, and you saw others, Dylan Grimes.
Yeah.
Like, how great was that? And then, but additionally, the players, yep, no, you're right, boom. So, it's fabulous. And I love that. So I think what we discussed really is that the feedback to us is that the game's really wrapped with what the players are doing now in terms of self-regulation and amendment to behaviour. And I think you and I talked about this maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 4. I sometimes lose track of time. Bit of a worry. But it's finding its watermark. And so we're getting to I think the game's got to a point where the players have amended behaviour. I think the umpires are aligning with that, and we're seeing a good space with it.
So is the dagoi threshold set? Is that incident now is that sort of our threshold? Don't award 50 metres there. More demonstrable than that, and blow the whistle.
That's the general sentiment, and I think what the really key thing about, if we use a specific example, because one of the challenging things about our game, one of the things that I love, and also about my role as an on-field official, is that no two examples are exactly the same. So you'll get an example so that dagoi one, if we just look at it, we don't get to hear anything or any of those other sorts of inputs. But, yep, he's frustrated. And yes, he controls himself. And I think you can't ask any more of a person in the context of playing a game. And so we wouldn't want to pay a 50-metre penalty for a player who controls themselves, because they're doing everything they can to just get on with the game. And that's what we want, I think. I think that's what everyone wants. Gerard?
So the age of arms out as 50, mate, is over.
Yeah, and, in relation to that, and I think when that first happened, I talked about it's all evolving. When things are new, we learn and we grow. And so without being critical of any individual, and I know we love to grab onto those moments because it helps us reference things, and it creates a catalyst for discussion. But, when a free kick is being awarded since that moment, what do you hear from the umpire? You hear whistle, right?
Yep.
And then dissent. Yep. And that's it. Because the specifics of that comment weren't actually accurate. But I understand what the umpire in the moment was trying to articulate. And so we've evolved and grown and got better in what we're doing. Yeah.
So the reform, would you say, has been successful across 12 rounds of the season?
My personal observations in terms of what we had been seeing, which was not great and not a good look, we are no longer seeing. And players have been fabulous in terms of just going, I've got to deal with my frustration and get on with playing the game. And it's been sensational. And I can't speak for community level because I'm not there every week. Some of my colleagues have children who umpire local football, and they have mixed reviews because, of course, one week to the next and different clubs and different experiences. But hopefully we're seeing better behaviours further down. Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can start to work through your questions with Ray 0433 98 11 16. I'll take some calls shortly. This week, so as well as dissent, there's been we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, the out of zone umpire and the working as a collective. So the Darcy Moore free kick, the taking of the legs from the out of zone umpire out at the 50 is the symbol for this week. It seems clear from the AFL that is an unwarranted free kick and how it's done. Just work us again through the dynamic of the umpire on the spot and the out of zone umpire.
Yeah, so I think the controlling umpire is the person who's officiating that, and they are known as the controlling umpire in our system. So, and our language. I think what's really important to understand here too is I've heard some discussion around overrules, and there's no Putin-esque behaviour, right? We're not trying to establish control of territory. We're working collaboratively, actually, and so we use terms such as assist, right? So we're just trying to service the game, and it's challenging, right? It's hard, and however, I also understand within some of that what I think was unhelpful commentary. I do understand the sentiment, which is if you're not sure, don't buy in, and that rings true. But we are a team out there. We get one line of sight and we get one look at it. And more often than not, you can be in really poor position to be able to make a call. So you need your colleague to assist. And our system's predicated around getting alternate views. So let's not toss the baby out with the bathwater when we've made an error. And that umpire who was involved was unbelievable this week, like in terms of just really owning it and saying, hey, listen, for these reasons, I learned this, It was great. It was great chat. So, you asked, what did we talk about at training? We were highly indexed around other areas that actually matter. And I think the group took a lot out of that.
So the difficulty with the scenario, Ray, is that the controlling umpire, who I suspect in this scenario has a really good read, has no play once the out-of-zone umpire blows the whistle. And I thought that's the challenging part of it. And you go, oh, I had that and it wasn't a free kick, and you have blown the whistle from out of zone, and as a collective, that's going to be bad.
You can't take the cordial out of the water, right?
Yep.
So, and that's why from when you're at that out of zone umpire, you've actually got time. You actually do have time. You don't have to be bang instantaneous, and a little tilt of the head and say, all right, I think I saw that. Where is my colleague?
Yep.
If they have a clear and uninterrupted view, maybe I can hold off here, actually. Yeah. And so then finding the balance between that and then also just knowing what you saw. Yes, I did see that, and that does warrant a free kick, and they may be in a very good position, but that needs to be paid. Again, right, we had an outlier, and it was a bad one, right? We're not happy with it, and they're not happy with it, and we want to move on and get better. We all own that. That's cool. But we don't throw the system out and the philosophy out on the basis of one poor decision in one game only.
So when you're the out of zone umpire, is it a higher threshold? So I think Gary said you have to be 3,000% sure. Like, do you have to be surer than sure to intervene if you feel like if your colleague did have a good view at it, so it becomes a disparity of judgment?
Okay, so I don't want to try and overcomplicate it or make it out to be any sexier than it is, right? But there's a couple of things that relate here. So you need to have situational awareness, okay? So if I'm looking up the line and it's a long kick up the line and there's a blocking scenario where a player steps off his line to block, the guy side onto that marking contest is going to be hard-pressed to see that.
Yes.
Whereas I'm looking straight up the line and I can see that.
Yep.
Arm around the waist, pinning the guy to the ground, third man over, takes the mark, that sort of example. So that situational awareness going, where are we vulnerable and do I actually have the best view here? And then, there are different rules, right? So holding the ball is very much interpretational, and subjective in its nature. But when a player's had a clear and obvious prior opportunity, is tackled and doesn't successfully handball, and you turn your head and look at your colleague and you go, he can't see. They can't see that, so they're not going to guess, but I can see that the handball hasn't happened. Well, you're going to tip in. So so that comes with experience and time too, Gerard.
Yep.
Learning those nuances to when do I buy in and when am I needed?
Yep.
And when do I just need to do my job and let my colleague do theirs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's treated as an error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Vanch is with us in plenty. Vanch, welcome to you.
Good morning, Gerard and Ray. Just with the slide-in rule, the Darcy Moore incident, it looks like maybe the umpire saw someone slide and thought, okay, that's a sliding tackle, it's a free kick. But I don't think it's as simple as that. The slide-in rule, I believe, was brought in where a player slides into another player's legs and takes his legs out from under him. That's fair enough. But when Darcy Moore has front position of the ball and the other player runs into Darcy Moore's side and falls over him, even though Darcy's sliding, he's got front position. I can't see why they judged it that way, and obviously it was an error. But one suggestion, I don't know if anyone's brought it up, a review, like they do in the cricket. If a team disagrees with a decision, can they be given one review per quarter, the same as what they do in the cricket, where if Collingwood felt, no, that shouldn't be a free kick, they give a signal, I want to review that. It only takes a few seconds. Is that something we can do? Because
hang on, Vanch. Let's come to that in a tick. So, delineate for me the Darcy Moore incident and the Cody Waitman on deconing. So, the taking of the legs.
Yeah, beautiful. So when we talk, there are two different rules here too. By the way, there's contact below the knees, okay, which is the one we're going to reference here, and then there's sliding. So you can't go in knees first or studs up into a contest onto the ground. Okay, so that's a separate rule altogether. But the one we're referencing here is contact below the knees. And Vanch's statement around that, there's some bits and pieces there where he's nailed it, actually. So when we're looking at contact below the knees, what we're looking for are the following, right? So a player who elects to go to ground, okay? So you're not bumped or pushed to the ground. I've chosen to do this, right? We're looking for that reckless sort of bowling ball type action, which I think we saw in the example you referenced. Was the deconing one versus the one that involved Darcy Moore. Okay, so they're different there in terms of what we see visually with the behaviour, and then we want to see movement in towards the opponent's leg. So if they're going in the same direction, Gerard, towards the ball, almost like verging in and merging with one another, you're less likely there. We're less likely to see a free kick for contact below the knees. They're sort of going in the similar direction and just merging in. It has to be forceful contact below the knees. It's not like nothing. Or a player, let's say it was deconing in the situation, was forced to take evasive action. So you've got to jump over the person by nature of what they've done. So in those instances, they're the sorts of cues that we're looking for to apply contact below the knees. And the one that involved Darcy Moore, it doesn't matter if the player gets to the ball first either. I heard that commentary, mate. Oh, he got there first. Doesn't matter, right? If you've elected to go to ground and it's forceful and it's that bowling ball action, then that's not on because the high risk of injury, etc. But clearly one example, it was not an accurate implementation of a free kick, and the other one is we haven't seen one, I don't think, like that. I don't recall one like that out of my head for 3-4 years. That's your poster child one.
So let me run two things past you, Ray.
Yeah.
Why can't the umpires apply some common sense, and could they stop being so damn literal with the rules and have a feel for the game? You can't use common sense. Where's common sense in the rules?
Mate, welcome to not my last 19 years. It's warm in here. Join me. Yeah, and look, the other part to that is, like, you've got this situation where it's very unique, and then it's heightened, and you've got crowd, and you've got players coming at you, and thank you, Dylan Grimes, and my shout for coffee. And then you're trying to, because it was paid from another umpire, so the gentleman that you heard there was the controlling umpire, but wasn't the person who blew their whistle for the free kick. So he's seeking clarification as well. So you've got to make sure you've got your information right. And then you're going, oh, okay, did that happen before or after? And then he did kick it away. And so there was a lot to unpack. And we don't have an hour to sit there and talk to the players and go, and by law this, and in 2020 we applied this application and we've been doing that since that time. And they're not wanting that. So he's trying to control the situation, communicate accordingly, and provide the player with a sufficient response to get on with whatever has to happen. So, yeah, but we got the right outcome. A situation like that, Gerard, too, after the siren stuff and all, there's all specific rules that roll around with it. So it's quite a complicated beast there, but we got the right result.
Did you all workshop that together in the aftermath?
Yeah, we've unpacked a few, actually, and there are some other examples that have happened in this season, not so much at the end of game, but end of quarter, that type of stuff, and then some historical ones. So, and then there's a million questions that just fall out of these things. What if this happened? What if he's actually having a shot on goal? And, so there are some bits and pieces that play out there in relation to the laws of the game. And can you pay a free kick after the siren? And, well, in these specific circumstances you can, but here you can't. So there's a lot there. But ultimately what those three umpires did on the night was they got the result that I'd have expected them to arrive at as a colleague.
Yep.
I've been there for 19 years. I know the rules. I understand the conversations and the context and the instructions that we've been given, and they got the right result. Brilliant.
Michael's in Leongatha. Welcome to you, Michael.
Hi, guys. I've just got a bit of a issue. Just listening to your conversation about the control umpire being overridden by another umpire. I was just wondering, do all umpires wear earpieces and microphones?
All the field umpires do, and assisted, not overridden.
Okay. Well, since they've all got earpieces and that, I understand there's an umpire in the stands watching a monitor. Why can't that umpire in the stands see that a decision's hasn't been made or made, and just say something over the earpieces to the umpire, say, oh, no, you need to override it, or it just makes sense.
So could you have your umpire in the stand, or your umpire and supervisor, assist in those matters?
So in the last 19 years, one of the greatest, one of the things that our game is predicated around is this continuous play. And a lot of the data, and particularly in sort of the last 15 years, that we hear and see about is how long the ball's actually in play, and they compare that to other codes and other products, yeah. And so the nature of our sport is that it is continuous. We don't want 150 throw-ins / lineouts, scrums, and we want to see the ball moving up and down the ground and what have you. One of the things we have a massive challenge. I'm a father, Gerard, in 2022, and it's an interesting dynamic, and we want to have everything our way, and we want everything now, and we're all pretty righteous about things, and we've all got a view. We've all got a platform. We can all express our opinions publicly, privately, wherever you like, right? So it's a different time to when you and I grew up. And that doesn't make it worse. It's just different. But, was the ball in with harms?
Yes.
Right? Like, it's sport. It's part of the thrust and parry. Did I nick it into my pad? I got given out LBW in a second grade grand final, Gerard, at Kingston Oval against South. And it was a shocking decision from that umpire. I walked into the change rooms after being dismissed, and the toasty machine copped it. And I had to apologise to Mr. Mulcaster. He wasn't wrapped with me because he'd spent a lot of time cooking those toasties for lunch. I wasn't wrapped. I acted like a tool, and there were toasties everywhere. But I got on with it and continued to play in that game, and we won that semi-final, Gerard.
The conceit in the question is that by going to video, sport improves, and I can show you. We could spend the rest of the day, not just the rest of my program, the rest of the day working through the examples in sport where the intervention and technology has actually invented error rather than solving error.
Correct, and it's not tennis, right? It's not in or out.
Yes.
So we're solving nothing. We accept and move on.
Let's get one more in. Damian's in Bentley. Welcome, Damian.
Yeah, hi guys. Ray, you just spoke about the continuous play, and that's what we're all aiming for. For years, I've never understood why so many marks are paid when the ball doesn't appear to go 15 or even 10 metres in some cases, much less 15. Just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge, and there are different parts of the ground where it's harder than others, which might sound a bit weird, but when you're trying to, and it's to do with our position and different function that we have to undertake in different parts of the ground. One of the parts that I think we find we make some blues where you go, I can understand why, is that kick inside 50. So mid-zone umpire controlling the ball, and the ball's going to go inside 50, and generally it's to a player who hits up at the ball. And so what happens is they're coming at a fair clip, right? So the ball gets kicked, and what, for all intents and purposes, looks like they're 20, 25 metres. By the time they mark the ball, they're at full tilt, they're running at the ball, and they close that space so quickly. And it might have only travelled 10, 12 metres. And then is it a change of control? Am I handing that over? Is it in general play, and I've got to watch the kicker because he's got a tackler bearing down on him, and I might have to pay an after disposal free kick because he's been smacked in the head or pushed to the ground. I then turn, the bloke's marked it on the fly, hitting up at the ball. Did it go 10? Did it go 13? Did it make 16, Gerard? So I'm not trying to wash our hands of it because I agree with the caller. It's an area where I think we could sharpen up with just a heightened awareness and being cognizant of what we're actually doing out there. But we are challenged.
How instantly recognisable is 15 metres?
I know, you've done it enough. So,
Yep.
yeah, and you know, so you know when it's a short one. And I think as much as anything, this is my view in terms of how I find this personally, it's mindset.
Yep.
So don't be oblivious to this. They've got to kick a 15, mate.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's really important.
Good to see you.
Hey, likewise, mate.
Ray Chamberlain in the studio.